Hey, this is MJ, and in today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to crochet a color block cardigan. This is a raglan style top down cardigan, and I will be adding a hood, pockets, and a belt. The yarn that I'm using is Mary Maxim Woodlands. This yarn was provided to me by Mary Maxim for this tutorial, and there will be a link in the description box on where you can purchase the yarn. This is a worsted weight number 4 yarn. It is 90% acrylic and 10% alpaca, which gives it that beautiful little fuzzy halo. So really nice, soft, beautiful yarn, and it's gonna make a really nice, cozy cardigan. So on a ball, we're getting 200 yards, and it is a 100-gram ball, and I'm using 4 colors for this pattern. So we have our nice cream here, as well as beige, brown, and charcoal. We'll be using 2 hook sizes for this pattern. You're going to need a 5.5 millimeter as well as a 5 millimeter crochet hook. I'm using Furls crochet hooks for this pattern, and there will be a link in the description box with a coupon code on where you can purchase the hooks. So with our 5.5 millimeter hook, we'll put a slip knot on our hook, and we'll begin with a chain of 89. In the second chain from the hook, we're going to turn and work into the back bumps. So there's 1, 2, and we'll work a single crochet in the back bump. And we'll work a single crochet in the back bump of each chain across. So you should have a total of 88 stitches. Okay, so once you've worked your 88 stitches, we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to start separating for our front sleeve, back sleeve, and other front panel. So we're going to begin with a half double crochet in the first 13. So 1, 2, 3. So work across 13 half double crochets. Okay, I've worked across 13. Now we're going to do our V-stitch. So a half double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet. For each subsequent row, we're going to be working our V-stitch in the chain 1 space, increasing our yoke. So this is the start of our front panel. Now we're going to work the sleeve portion, and we're going to work across a total of 16. So half double crochets across 16 stitches. Okay, and the next stitch we'll be working our next V. So half double, chain 1, half double crochet. Now we'll be working across the back, and it will be a total of 26 stitches. So work across 26 half double crochets. And after you've completed 26, we're going to work a V, half double, chain 1, half double. And now we'll work across the next sleeve section, which will be 16 stitches. 16 half double crochets across, and a V in the next stitch. So half double, chain 1, half double, and we'll work half double crochets in the remaining 13 stitches. So now you'll see the shape starting to take form. So we have our back, our sleeves, our front panels. So this is a raglan, how you will create a raglan top-down cardigan. And we're just going to keep increasing this yoke until you reach your desired size. So all sizes begin the same. You can head over to the blog to follow along. We'll be adding a hood at the end, or you could do just a collar, a ribbed collar around if you prefer. But now we'll chain one, and I will show you how now we do our increase row, which will just be repeated throughout. So we'll work across in half double crochets until we reach the chain one space. So I've worked across 14, and every row will go up one more stitch for the front panel. So I now have 14. I've come to my chain one space. I'm going to work a half double, chain one, half double in the chain one space. Now I'm going to work across the sleeve section, which will now have been increased by 2. So last row was 16, so this row should be 18. And it's a good idea at the start just to keep track of your stitches so you don't lose one. And that your cardigan remains even in all sections. Okay, so this is my 18th stitch. I'm to my chain one, and I'll do another V, half double, chain one, half double. And now my back section was 26 stitches the first row, so now we're going to be up to 28 stitches. So I'll work that across. Okay, so I've worked across 28. I will do another V, so half double, chain one, half double in the chain one space. And make sure you always see that first stitch there, that it doesn't get squished in. And now's the next sleeve. So we'll work across 18 stitches. Half double crochets. Okay, that looks a little... Okay, so I've worked across 18, and now in the chain one space, half double, chain one, half double, and we're finishing with 14 half double crochet stitches for the front panel. So this portion is going to work up really, really quick. We're just repeating this row 2 until you've increased your size. So follow along with your pattern. You'll just keep increasing until the yoke is big enough. You can try it on as you go to make sure that the sizing is right for you. Let me just finish here up with my okay, so again, this is how it's looking. So when you go to try it on, this part here needs to fit your arm. Okay, as you see, we're really small right now, but this will get pinched together, and then you've got your front panels and your back panels. So that's kind of a little image of how that works. So this section here needs to be big enough for your arms. This section plus this section needs to be able to go around your body. So I'm going to keep increasing until I reach my desired size, and then I'm going to meet you back up again to show you how to separate out the sleeves and then keep working our body. Okay, so I've worked up a total of 17 half double crochet rows, including our foundation row. We have a total of 18. And at this point, we're going to separate our body and our sleeves. And to do that, I'm going to chain one, I'm going to turn and I'm going to start working across my front panel. So I've worked across 30 stitches and now I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to skip the entire sleeve section. You're going to find your V-stitch, and in that half double crochet of the V, we're going to do a half double. So yarn over, go through, pull up a loop, pull through 3. Then we're going to work across our entire back section in half double crochets. Okay, so I'm finishing with 60. So the front panel 30, the back panel 60, and now we're going to chain 4. This is the underarm chain, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're skipping across the sleeve, coming to our other front panel. So we're going to find that half double crochet of the V, and we will half double crochet into it. And you should be working across a total of 30. Okay, so I've worked across 30. I'm going to chain 1 and turn. And now we'll be working across a total of 128 stitches. So you have 30 plus 30 plus 60 is 120. Plus we have our chain 4 and our chain 4, which is 8. So a total of 128. So I'm going to work across, and then I'll be working across the chain once I get to it. Okay, so I've worked across 30, and now we have our 4 chains. I'll work into the back hump and get my hook through. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm going to continue working across. So we have 60. We'll do the same thing, work in the back hump of the chain and across. Okay, so I finished off that row, and now we're going to be changing over to the next color, which is our Beige Heather. So let me show you how to change the color. We can do that actually on our last stitch. So let's pull from the center of this ball. And at this point, I have about 8 inches worth of work. Okay, so I'm going to yarn over, and then instead of yarning over to pull through, we pull through with the new color. You can alternate your colors really however you want. You could even do this cardigan all in one color, and that would be great as well. Now I'm going to turn, and I am going to crochet over those tails a bit. And at this point, all we're doing is working back and forth in rows. We aren't doing any more increasing. The only time you may want to increase is when you're getting to your hips. If, let's say, you want to make some adjustments to this pattern, if you're smaller up top and bigger on the bottom and you really feel like you need a little bit more room around the hip area, you could do some increases. What I suggest is evenly spacing them. So I would take, let's say, my 128 stitches and divide it out by 4 if I wanted to add 4 increased stitches, and then maybe do a couple rows of that. It just depends on how many inches you want to add. So for this pattern, you're looking at about 3 stitches per inch. So it just depends how many inches you want to increase around your hip area, how many rows of increasing you want to do. That's really up to you, but that's all you need to do is just add in some increases. If you could even add them at the end. Let's say add a couple, 2 stitches here, 2 stitches on the others. Actually, I wouldn't suggest doing them on the ends. I would suggest adding them because we don't want to distort our nice edge here. So I would add them in amongst the pattern, maybe even over like on the corners or something. Just really whatever you think to give yourself a little bit of extra room down around the hip. But this cardigan is just going to be straight, so we won't have any more increasing. We're just going to continue. It is an oversized fit for myself, so it's going to fit my hips. It will be big up around the shoulder as well, but I want this to be a nice, cozy, oversized cardigan. So one thing you might want to do just to keep you on track throughout the pattern is mark your right side. So you want to always change color when you're on the right side of your work, so you have the nice clean edge for your color change. Each size can be slightly different for how we're going to change color, and you can change up your color pattern however you want. I like to wait to change it after my arm, but for the larger sizes, if you want even blocks of color, we can have the color change before our sleeve. Because I'm going to keep my blocking fairly even, so I'm going to go with roughly the same amount of rows for each color section that I'm doing. I'm going to do 4 sections of color. Again, you can change that up and do 3 sections if you prefer. Really, it's a personal preference. If you want to go exactly like the pattern, then just follow along with your pattern directions. So I'm going to continue now. I'm starting row 2 of this. So I know that this will be, if I'm working on row 2 now, that's the wrong side. So an odd number will be back to the right side. So I'm going to do a total of 20 in this color, and then my next color, I'll bring in the darker brown color. So I'm just going to continue now with 20 rows in this color. Then I will switch over and do another 20 rows in the next color, and so on. So you can head to the blog and follow along with the written pattern for the size you're working on. Okay, so now we're taking a look at the body, and I'm going to go over the color pattern with you. So we worked 20 rows of color B, then I changed over to color C, and this is just rows back and forth. There's no increasing or decreasing, so it's just really easy, quick work. You then do 20 rows of your color C, and again, this can be altered. You can do however many rows as necessary, depending on the length that you would like the cardigan. And then what I have finished up with color C is 12 rows. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I like to count with the ridges. So I have done 12, and then I'm finishing that off, and then I'm going to do the ribbing, which I'm going to go over with you. So let's just finish this off here. I'm going to chain 1 and turn. Before I start into my ribbed band, I'm going to work across now a row of single crochet. So we're just going to work across single crochet, and this will be the base row for that join as you go band. Okay, so we're just going to work it all the way across in single crochets. Okay, so I've worked across 128 stitches. And now we're going to do our join as you go ribbed band. I am not going to change over to the smaller hook. The only way you would want to do that is if you want your band to pull in a bit tighter. I don't want this band pulled in too tight along the bottom. A little bit of pulling is okay, but not a lot. So I'm just going to stick with the 5.5 millimeter hook as I do this. Now on the cuff of the sleeve, I do want it tighter, so I will use the smaller hook for that cuff. So let's begin with a chain of 13. Okay, and we're going to work in the second chain from the hook. So we're actually working across 12 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I've worked across 12. Now that very first stitch right here, we're skipping it. We're going to slip stitch into the next 2. Okay, so this row here is going to line up with that first stitch. We're now slip stitching in the next 2, and we're working 2 rows to accommodate those 2 slip stitches. So let's turn. We skip over the slip stitches, 1, 2, and then we're working into the back loop of each stitch across. And I really like to count as I go with my band so I don't lose a stitch. So 3, 4, 5. Okay, so there's 12. Chain 1 and turn, and we're working back down. So this is basically a ribbed band. We're just slip stitching it to join it to the bottom as we go. So each row is worked single crochets in the back loop only. Okay, and once we get all the way down, we're slip stitching into the next 2. So 1, 2, and we're just going back and forth, repeating this all the way along. So we will end, as we work this along, we're going to end with only 1 slip stitch at the bottom. We'll work our way back, up, and we'll be fastening off at the top. But I'm going to work this across, and then when I get to the end, we'll meet back up again. Okay, so you're working across. This is going to take a while because you have 128 rows to complete in total. Working across, because this is working your front panel, and your back all at the same time. So lots of work to get all the way across this row with this ribbing. So once you get to the end, if I haven't met back up with you, just fasten that off and we'll meet back up to finish the sleeve cuffs. Okay, so once you finish working across the bottom of your ribbing, I've just fastened off at the end and cut that. Okay, so we're going to join onto the sleeve, and what you're going to do is we need to work on the wrong side of the sleeve because our next color we want to be on the right side. So we have one more round. So we need to find that chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to join 1, 2 into the third. And I crocheted in the back hump of it before, so I could kind of have a stitch to pull into here. So we'll chain 1 and work a half double crochet. And a half double crochet in the next. It might be a little bit tight to get into. I think I joined into the wrong one. 1, 2, right here. You just want to be in the center. That's the important thing. As close as you can to the center of that arm. Chain 1 and work a half double, a half double, so we're going to have 50 stitches from, if you look at the V here, we're going to have 50 stitches from this V over to this V. But as you can see, we have some spacing here that we need to fill in. So I am going to do a decrease across. Okay, so I have 4 loops on my hook. And now into this stitch, we're going to count around a total of 50 because you really want to stay on track with the stitch count. Okay, so we've worked across 50. We've got our 2 chains in here, and then we have some spacing again. So let's do a decrease across this spacing. And then we'll finish off with 1, 2. So in total, we have 56 stitches around. Now we do need to change color to stick with our color pattern. So we'll yarn over, go through the stitch, pulling up a loop, and now we're going to yarn over. We need to slip stitch to join. We're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn our work. Okay, so we're working in the round, but we need to turn our work. But let's get, because we were here working on, we want to get those tails in here. Let me fix that up. Let's do that again. We want our tails to the inside because this is the wrong side. So yarn over, go through the stitch, pull up a loop. Let's keep this tail in here. yarn over, keep our tails to the inside, slip stitch to join, chain one, give those tails a tug, and now we're going to turn our work, okay? We need to turn, because if we don't, a few things are gonna happen. Our pattern is not gonna match up. Our rows, we are turning all the time. So you have one row that pops up, one row that sort of goes down in, as you can see, this sort of ribbed look. If we start working in the round, all of the stitches are gonna look the same. They're gonna look raised like that. So you need to turn. Also, half double crochets in the round will automatically curve. And then we're gonna have a seam that is not going how we want it to without making some adjustments. So this is also gonna correct that. The turn is gonna correct that, as well as keep the pattern looking consistent with the rest of the cardigan. So what we'll do is work a half double crochet. We can crochet over some tails. Now I am going to decrease across the next two. Okay, so we have one and then we have a decrease. And then I'm going to keep working around until I get to the last 3 stitches. So let's work around. So now you can see we're working on the right side. So this row and this row are going to look the same. It's going to be a nice edge for our color transition. So I'm going to work that around to the last 3 stitches. Okay, I have 3 stitches remaining. We're going to do another decrease, pull up a loop, go through, and we're pulling through all of those stitches. And now we're ending with 1 stitch. We're going to find the top of our first half double crochet to join. We're going to chain 1 and we're turning our work again. We're going to work a half double crochet into every stitch around, and I'm going to count to make sure that I have now 54 stitches. Okay, and this is our final stitch right here. This is my 54th stitch. So those decreases at the beginning basically just closed in the gap. If we have our 50 stitches plus our 4 chains, we should have 54 for the sleeve. So now we've got that gap closed in and we are working with our 54 stitches. Find the first half double crochet to join. We'll chain 1 and we're turning again. So now if you look at your stitch, this is the first stitch we're working into right here. This is the first stitch. This is the last stitch, okay? So if we were working the other way, this would be your first stitch, which is attached right here to the chain. But when we begin, we're starting here and then we're ending right there, okay? So that's sort of your little visual so you can see where you're supposed to be working. Again, the chain 1's not included as a stitch. So at this point, you can work your sleeve. You can add decreases if you want to taper your sleeve, or we can make it all staying at the 54 stitch mark and just cinching it in when we get to the cuff. I'm going to try mine on to see my proper sleeve length, and this is what's great with the top down is that you can try it on and you can see how many inches you need from this point now to where you would like your sleeve to go to. I'm going to do it for my arm length, and I'm going to change up my color pattern based on that because I want to make sure I get the 4 colors in here. So this is my first, my second, and then my third and fourth. So I'm going to break up the color pattern for the sleeve so that it properly fits my arm. I'm going to finish with the cuff in the last color. So I'm going to take that into account when I'm looking at how many rows for each of the colors. So if you want to alter that in any way, try on your cardigan, see how much length you need to go, see how many inches, and then we can just mix up the color rows based on that. Okay, so I'm working away on the sleeve. So what I have done here is 10 rows in my color B. I'm almost to the end of that. And at this point, I'm going to start decreasing the sleeve. Okay, so I was working away on my sleeve and I decided on a very gradual decrease. So I decreased down to a total of 40 stitches, and then I did a final decrease before I did the cuff. So we're going to take a look at the other sleeve and I'm going to go through that with you. So this sleeve, I started off the same way we did the other one, getting decreasing sort of into these corners until we had the 54 stitches. Now I've worked a total of 10 rows in color B. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I just grab my hook, and I believe I finished on the wrong side. So let's just come back in here. Chain 1 and turn. So how I'm working the decreases is I'm doing one at the start and one at the end so that we have 2 decreases. So I'm going to just work a half double crochet in my first stitch, and then I'm going to decrease across the next 2. Okay, and pull through all 4 loops. Then what you'll do is work all the way around until your last 3 stitches, and then we'll do a decrease and then 1 in the last. So I'm going to work that around. Okay, so now I've worked around until I have 3 stitches remaining. We're going to do a decrease across the next 2. And then 1 half double crochet in the last stitch. Okay, so that is our decrease round. We'll slip stitch in the first half double to join, chain 1 and turn our work again. And now what you'll do throughout now, the decrease pattern will be every 4th row. So I will do 3 rows now, working 52 stitches around. And then I will decrease exactly the way I just showed you. And you're just going to continue that decrease pattern until you get to 40 stitches or follow along with the size that you're working on. You can, of course, change that up and do more decreases if you want, fewer decreases. Really, you can play around. Now, the other thing I needed to mention is your color pattern. So I decided on 16 rows of my color B and then 16 rows or rounds of my color C. And then D, I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds. Then we do our decrease and then we do our band. So what you'll want to do is continue with your decrease pattern, continue working your color pattern, and then we're going to meet up again when we get down to this section, and I will go over the final decrease and the join as you go cuff. Okay, so once we've finished working our 3rd section of color pattern, so we have 2, 4, 6. You should be back to your right side. Let me just finish this off here. So I'm still with my 5.5 millimeter hook. We'll chain one and turn. And now we're going to do some more decreases because I want the cuff a little bit tighter around my wrist. So we're going to work a single crochet, a single crochet, and then the next 2 stitches we're going to decrease. So now you should have 40 stitches. You should have decreased to 40. So we're going to pull up a loop, and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. And you're just going to do that all the way around. 1, 2, and decrease the 3rd and 4th stitch. So this is going to decrease us another 10 stitches. So we're going to be reduced to 30. Now, depending on the size you're working on, you may find you want to decrease a little bit more for a tighter cuff. It's really up to you. You can decrease this as much as you want so that you have a cuff the way you like it. If you like it a bit looser, don't decrease as many stitches. If you like it tight, decrease some more. You can really just customize it however you like. So I'm going to keep working that around. 1, 2, decreasing the 3rd and 4th stitch. So once you get all the way around, we're going to slip stitch to join, and then we're going to change over to the smaller hook. Then we'll chain out a total of 13. And in the second chain from the hook, we'll work a single crochet and in each chain down. So you'll have a total of 12 stitches. Now, once you've worked all the way down, we're going to skip that first stitch that is attached here to our slip stitch, and we'll slip stitch into the next 2. So this is going to be worked just like we did the band along the bottom. So we're joining this as we go around. Now we'll work single crochets in the back loop. So we're skipping the 2 slip stitches, working single crochets in the back loop only, for a total of 12. At the end of the row, we'll chain 1 and turn. We're working back down now, still working single crochets in the back loop only. So the cuff is single crochets in the back loop only. All the way around, we're going to want that we have 30 rows, the same number of rows as we have stitches. Once you've worked all the way down, we're slip stitching into the next 2 stitches. And then we're just going to work back and forth. So complete this all the way around. When we get to the end, you'll be slip stitching into there'll be only 1 stitch left, and then you'll work all the way back to the top. So I'll continue working that now off camera. And we'll meet back up to slip stitch it to finish it off. Okay, so once you've worked all the way around, we're going to chain 1, and we need to slip stitch this now together, but we don't want our slip stitch to the outside. We want it to the inside. So you can flip it inside out or just fold it back over like this. So now we end up with that starting chain on the side that's closest to us. So we're going to come over and we're going to go through. I know it's hard to see with the dark, but we're just going through the first chain and then just come over and go through that front loop only. Okay, so the chain and then going over to the front loop only, and just slip stitch this all the way across. And we can fasten this off, and you just want to weave in your tail. Okay, and then this is how your cuff should be looking. If you're adding the hood, what we're going to do is come over and join in to the first stitch. And we can begin with a chain 1. And we're going to work half double crochets in each stitch around. Now, because we worked in the back bump, you should be able to get into that stitch there. It'll be a little bit tight. Okay, so I'm going to work across this first section and then I'll meet you up. So I've worked across 12. I'm going to do a decrease across the next three. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and pull that together. Now I'm going to work across 14 stitches. Worked across 14, we should be coming to that next sort of curved section, and we're going to do another decrease. We're going to pull up a loop, go through the next stitch, pull up a loop, go through the next stitch, pull up a loop, and pull through all 5 loops. Okay, and next we'll be going across the back, and we're going to go across 24 stitches. Okay, I've worked across 24. We're going to do our decrease. 1, 2, 3, and yarn over and pull through all 5 loops. And then we're just really repeating what we did on the other side. So now we'll work across 14. Okay, and now I've worked across 14, so we'll do another decrease. We're just creasing those 3 stitches together into 1. And then we're going to go across 12 stitches. Okay, so now we're working with 80 stitches around. So for the hood, we're just going to be working back and forth in rows till we have about 8 inches worth of work. Okay, so you're just going to be going back and forth at 80 stitches, really, really simple. Once we get so much work done, I'm going to do some decreasing so that we don't have a pointy hood. So it'll have a little bit more of a curved shape. If you wanted that point, you would just continue in rows for about 10.5 to 11 inches, which is a good height for your hood. But like I say, if you want to have it your hood not have that square angle, we are going to do some decreases to kind of round it off a little bit. This is going to be a little bit of work again. We're working rows of 80 stitches. So just in half double crochets, I'm doing it all in the cream with the 5.5 millimeter hook. And once I get that complete, we're going to meet up for the decrease rows. Okay, so now for the hood, I've worked a total of 22 rows, and let's just give this a measure here. So that is about 8 inches. Okay, so now we're meeting up to do some decrease rows. And this is so that we don't have the point on the hood. So if you want the point on the hood, just keep going. Don't do any decreases, but this is going to kind of curve it slightly. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and I'm going to work across 36 half double crochets. Okay, so I've worked across 36. Now across the next 8 stitches, we'll be doing half double crochet decreases. So we're going to decrease the next, basically we'll do 4 decreases across the next 8. So pull up a loop, go through the next stitch, pull up a loop, pull through all 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you should be finishing with 36 half double crochets across. And the next row, I'd like you just to work across 1 in every stitch. Okay, so we'll chain 1 and just work across every stitch. So we reduced 4 stitches, so we should be at 76 stitches for this row. Okay, so we'll chain 1 and turn. And now for this row, we're going to work across 36 stitches again, and then we're going to do 2 decreases across 4 stitches. So let's go ahead and work across 36. Okay, and so now we'll do a decrease across the next 2, decrease across the next 2, and work across 36 stitches. Okay, so I've chained 1, and for this row, we're gonna work across 35, and then we'll do 2 more decreases. So work across 35 stitches. Okay, I've worked across 35. Now I'll decrease across the next 2 and across the next 2. And I'll continue with another 35 stitches. Okay, so we'll chain 1 and turn, and for this row, we're going to work a total of 34, and then we'll do 2 decreases. Worked across 34, we'll do 2 decreases. So here's 1 and 2 across 4 stitches. And we'll finish with 34 half double crochets. Okay, so our next row, we're only going to do 1 decrease, so we're going to work again across 34 stitches. Okay, so I'm going to decrease across the next 2 and then finish working half double crochets across. Okay, we'll chain 1 and turn, and finally we'll just work 1 half double crochet in every stitch around. So you should have a total of 69 stitches. Okay, so the hood should now be, if we go back to that first round, it's about 11.5 inches if we give it a little stretch. And you can see that we've curved that back section. And doing more decreases would just curve it more. If you want the hood any longer, you can just continue and you could do some more decreases. Okay, so we're gonna fasten off. And you want to put your right sides facing, and we're just going to whip stitch the top of the hood together. I prefer this over the slip stitch. So you just want to line everything up. I'm going to go through each stitch. I'm going to go through the first twice. So all you're going to do is just take your yarn needle and whip stitch this, going through each stitch on both sides. And once you've completed that, you can just weave in your tails. That's how it will look on the top. Nice, it'll lay nice and flat, which is what I want. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have the right side facing for the edging, and I want to do like colors. So I'm going to do gray for gray, brown for brown, taupe for taupe, and all the way around in that manner. So I'm going to use my smaller hook, my 5mm hook for this, and join on, and I'll work single crochet stitches across. Okay, so I've worked across 12, and now what we want to do is for every 2 rows, we want 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3. So then you can look at the row that kind of indents and then the row that sort of pops up. 1, 2, 3. One, 2, 3. So that should get you a nice even edge. If your edge is looking wonky, like too many stitches or too few, you can alter that up. But I'm just going to go with the pattern that I have 3 stitches for every 2 half double crochet rows. And then when you get to the brown, you can change over. Now what I suggest doing is separating out your ball just so you can pick your colors back up as you go. So I'll just drop off this gray, but I'll want to add another ball of gray over here. So just separate some off of a ball or whatever you need to do, and that'll just make it easy that as we work, we just change the color and pick it back up. So we don't have to carry any yarn, we don't have to do any cutting, and that'll just make it a little easier. Okay, and as I get to the next, pull through. we're just gonna keep doing this around. Now you can make your edging as thick as you want. So how I designed this cardigan is that both of your front panels are equaling the back. So this is where you can give yourself a little bit extra ease. Because of the bust, the front, you may want sometimes the front bigger than the back. So adding some extra rows of edging is just gonna give you a little bit more ease around the bust. So this is where you can kind of play around with adding as many rows of edging as you want. So I'm gonna just continue in this manner. Now I'm getting to the cream. With the cream, you won't need to separate it. You'll just need the one. It will be your other colors that you'll need a separate ball when we join in over on the other side. So as you come along, you're going to change color again for each section, and then we'll chain one at the end and continue working back around, doing as many rows, working back and forth, changing color for each of the color blocks as wide as you would like that to go. So I'm going to continue working this now off camera, and then I'll meet you back up to show you how many rows I've ended up doing for mine. And I can pop up instructions for you now as well. I completed my edging and I did a total of 3 rows to finish that off. And as you can see, I changed color for each color section as I went. After I completed that, I just wove in all of my tails. Worked up a belt. This is, of course, is optional, but it's nice if you just want, I don't have any buttons on mine, so if you want to just hold your cardigan in nice, you could even put some belt loops on the side if you wanted the belt to hold. Excuse me, I'm trying to finish this video for you, but I do have a cold. There's just a few steps to work through, so I'm gonna do this for you. I apologize for my voice. So I just did 10 stitches for my belt, single crochet in the back loop. So you'll begin with a chain of 11, and I'm using the 5mm hook. Okay, so we're just going to go in the second chain from the hook, a single crochet in the back loop only. Depending on the size you're working on, you may want to make it longer or shorter. I did a total of 152 rows, and that gave me a belt that's about 64 inches long. And I steamed the belt to help flatten it out. You'll notice I didn't steam the ends as well. The ribbing will cinch kind of together, but if you steam this out, you can get it nice and flat. I'm not going to work through much of the belt with you. I'm just showing you how to get it started. And then it's just mindless work. You're just going to sit and crochet single crochets in the back loop only until you have as many rows as you'd like. So we'll chain 1 in turn and work a single crochet in the back loop. Okay. And just keep working rows like that. What I also did was I added a pocket, and of course this again is an optional add-on, but I find it really nice and cozy to add the pocket, so I'm going to work through the steps with you for that as well. Okay, so I am using my 5mm hook for this, and I'm using the brown heather because that's the right section that will match up if you've switched up colors, in your third section is where the pocket should be lining up. And I'm going to chain 6. And we'll work single crochets across so that you have a total of 5 stitches. So again, this little ribbed part of the pocket is worked just like the belt. We're just working single crochets in the back loop only. Chain 1, and now we'll work single crochets across in the back loop. And then we're just repeating row 2. So I want you to work up a total of 20 rows. Okay, so I've worked up a total of 20. I'm going to chain 1 and work single crochets in each row across so that I have 20 single crochet stitches. Okay, and then I'll chain 1 and turn and work half double crochets. So now we're just working half double crochets for each row. Okay, so just like we've been working throughout the pattern, but I'm just working this with my smaller hook. I want you to work up a total of 12 rows of half double crochet, and then we're going to meet up again. Okay, so I've worked to 12 rows of half double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I'm just going to do a slip stitch edging on this side and this side, just because I like having that back loop to sew with. So I'm going to chain 1, and I'm just going to evenly work slip stitches along the edge. Just make sure not to pull them too tight. You're going to see you're going to have the nice look of the stitch across. So once you get across, we're just going to fasten that off. I should have probably left a long tail there. Yeah, if you leave a really long tail on that one, you can use it to sew and you can work all the way around, but I just messed up and did it too short. So I'll have to join on now to sew it. And then what you're going to do is come over here and we're just going to join on and do the same thing with a slip stitch edge across. Okay, so you're just going to slip stitch just the same way we did the other side. When you get to the bottom, you're going to fasten off. I'm not doing good here. So work that, I'm going to fasten this tail off. Now I'm going to weave in all my ends. You'll have likely a nice long tail to sew this now onto the cardigan, but because I messed up, I'm going to weave in all my tails and then I'm just going to join on again for sewing it to the cardigan. Okay, so now what we want is to make sure that we have the side with the nice slip stitch edging. And I just like to match it up to how I matched up this one. And I always look at the rows to do that. So I have my puffed up row here. I have a bit of the puffed up row down here. And I'm just going to use that as a marker when I'm sewing. And I'm leaving about 1 inch from the side. Just approximately. Let's measure it and see. Yeah, it's about 1 inch. It's going to be hard to see this because I'm working with the darker yarn, but you're just gonna take your yarn needle and you're gonna sew through the back loop of the slip stitch. Get this attached over here. You're just going through the cardigan, through the pocket. The first section here doesn't matter so much where you're going through. We just want to get this secure to get started. But then as I work along, I'm going to go through the back loop of that slip stitch. Again, you're not going to be able to see, but on your own work, you'll be able to see that you're just taking a piece of the cardigan with going through the back loop of that slip stitch. And what you're gonna do is just work that all the way around. Okay, so once you're done, you're just gonna weave in this tail. Now I'm just gonna stick it in here. So now both pockets are on. You can take your belt. You see, you can add some belt loops if you really want to keep the belt in place. What I suggest, this is quite long, this cardigan, so just a suggestion, if you want it a little bit shorter, just don't do your 4th color, and that would keep the cardigan a little bit shorter for you. So for this pattern, I haven't done any wet blocking, but I do suggest doing some steam blocking. Just be careful now with the steam that you don't melt, especially if you're using acrylic yarn. What I found really nice for the band at the bottom, if you steam it, it's just going to flatten it out and make sure that the sizing coordinates well with the rest of the cardigan. Otherwise, you might get some curving and finding that it is pulling in a little bit on the bottom. So steaming that out just helps it. And I just hung mine up on a hanger and then just gently steamed it. And I used the steamer for the belt as well. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tap the bell to stay updated on all my new videos and tutorials. Thanks so much, guys. Have an awesome day.